Hello everyone. Welcome back to Sustainable Living with Shilpa Reddy, powered by Planet Greens Farm Natura, a new beginning to your life. On this very special episode of Coco Work Sustainable Star, I have with me the energetic, dashing, ever smiling, a person who walks the talk, works constantly towards betterment of the environment. She is not only a film star, but a sustainable entrepreneur and a constant voice that you hear in the sustainable space. Let's welcome Shraddha Srinath on my show. Hi Shraddha, thank you for coming on my show. It's a true honor to have you in Hyderabad from Bangalore.
Oh, thank you.
And I also wanted to mention that I was asked by my friend Samantha, to bring you on my show.
What an honor.
So when I started Sustainable Living with Shilpa Reddy's, she helped me a lot, and then she was on my show as well.
Right.
And then I kept asking her, do you have any more, your co-stars who are into sustainability? And then the first name was yours.
My God.
And I'm so glad you're here with us today.
I'm glad something got me recognized by the Samantha. Thank you so much, Shilpa, for having me here. Thank you, Samantha, for recommending my name. But really, it's I am in awe of what you're doing, and to help further this, I'm more than happy to come and chat about my practices. So yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Shraddha, let me dive right in. Let's start with your childhood. I saw one of your interview wherein you said, my upbringing is something which made me switch to sustainability easily. You were brought up by your parents,
Right.
teaching you the value of the resources you have.
Yes.
So can you tell a little more about your childhood?
I'm an army kid. My dad served in the army for 30 plus years. And we grew up, me and my sister, we grew up very close to nature. As you know, like the army stations are never in like fancy big cities.
Right.
They would always be in like obscure little towns, like, quaint stations, hill stations, in the forests, or like in like desert areas. But so we grew up very close to nature. In fact, I remember some places where after dark you could hear the hyenas howling.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In
Wow.
fact, we could, sometimes at late at night we could see hyenas walking around near the dump yard, or it would rain very heavily, and like in the distance you could see snow-capped mountains, so you know that it has snowed there,
Right.
while here it has only rained. So, I mean, that's how closely, and we would just randomly discover waterfalls, we would go horse riding in the hills. It was beautiful.
I'm envious now.
Yeah, really, I mean, it is something to be
Wow.
envious about. So that's the kind of upbringing I had, and I really appreciated being like so close to nature. And then again, we also were posted in bigger towns, but it never felt the same. It felt very like, what are these? Like, where are the trees? Why is it so hot? Why is it not raining enough? It suddenly felt the change. So I grew up being a big nature's girl. Like, I was a nature baby. But alongside that, my parents were also, like middle class parents who really valued everything. Food must not be wasted, because someone has put in that effort to grow your food, and someone has put in the effort to cook your food. So everything has some energy or some resources that has gone into it. You could say like, okay, my dad was like, so I had this habit, I would take lots of moisturizer, apply whatever, and then I would like wipe it on my clothes. My dad would say, I mean, it's a very tiny thing, but he would say, don't waste anything. It's not about money. It's not about the money that's being spent on it. Like that moisturizer has come from a factory where water and electricity has gone to make it. He would try and explain this to little kids.
And this was way back.
This is way back.
when you're
We
growing
never
up.
really cared. But just listening to it and then growing up, and then you realize he's right. There's so much that goes behind the production of every single thing, and wasting it is just like gross injustice, it's like a crime. So yeah, we were always me and my sister were always the ones who like we would turn off the lights when not required. Like a tap is running, we'd be like shut it. What are you doing?
It would bother you.
It would bother me. I sometimes watch movies where the actor is washing their hands and like soaping their hands, and the tap is still running, and it gives me major anxiety. I'm that person. So
Wow,
I
nice.
grew up believing that nothing that comes, like value everything, do not waste anything.
That was your childhood.
That was kind of my childhood, yes.
And I think it added so much value to you.
Surely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the same person, yeah.
So when did your journey towards sustainability started? Like seriously as an individual?
I can't pick a time or a year, honestly. Um, I've like always been the person who would, like frown at people who just wasted paper for no reason. Like they would write one line and the rest of the paper would remain wasted. And so I know that these thoughts were always in my mind. I would sometimes walk by my empty college and I would see that like fans are on, so I'd switch them off. So you know what I mean? So I've always been that person. But I think if I had to like really like pin a sort of moment, I think it would be the lockdown. I'm grateful for the lockdown, and I guess I'm too privileged to say that, oh, I had a beautiful 2020. But the lockdown really sort of got me thinking about, gosh, what are we doing as a planet? There was, some newspaper articles about how the earth is healing. You can see like dolphins coming to the coast, and you can see fish in the like waters have gone clear. Of course, I realize that it's not a long-term thing, but then the lockdown is when I started really sort of reading up about whatever, like practices that you can adapt at home. I started reading up about sustainable fashion, about, like fast fashion and its effects on this thing. I read about the meat industry, about so much, like about how flights, like you take a flight and your carbon like footprint just goes up, shoots up the roof. I realized every step we take as human beings is not rid of, like you are harming the planet a little by little. Every single thing you do. You call a delivery guy, you import a beauty cream from the West, that's it.
Yeah,
So
adding to your carbon
footprint. And
footprint.
it gave me so much stress just thinking of, like I said, I grew up thinking of all these things, and I'm doing I have like a 10-step beauty routine.
Oh,
and you know, like my serum is coming from there, my under eye cream is coming from there, and I realized that I have to do something about it. I really need to do something about it.
So when did you take to social media? I mean, you have used your platform beautifully to create awareness, and I heard you did some polls as well. Can
Yeah, I
you
did.
explain about that?
I just wanted to sort of understand what the like the common person on social media understands about sustainability.
Okay.
Again, I feel like sustainability as a subject, we are privileged to understand what the earth is going through, what carbon footprint is. We were not taught this in schools, but we have the intellect to understand this now. We have the access to internet to use it well to understand these things. So we are privileged in that sense. And I realize that not everyone on social media, everyone has access to internet, but do they really understand these things? So I just wanted to understand, what people understand about sustainability. Do they find it hard to follow sustainable practices? Are they even aware of the word sustainable? So for me, it was just like my way of trying to understand. And by the end of the poll and when I got the results, I realized, okay, this is the kind of audience that I'm speaking to. So I can't be like, oh, carbon footprint. Like I have to explain what it means. Because some people are genuinely like, they have good intentions, they want to do something, but they don't know, they don't understand.
That's right.
Some of them probably don't speak English as comfortably, or don't understand English as comfortably. So that was my way of really sort of understanding the, the kind of people that I'm talking to. I could be preaching so many things, but are they really understanding? Is it going above their heads? So yeah, this was...
So to simplify and to help them understand what you're saying, you did the poll.
Yes.
And what did you find out?
Oh, I realized that the word sustainability has really caught up with people.
It did.
I was surprised actually. I was thinking that people would be like, what's sustainability? But a lot of people do get it. It's more in the news. There's a lot of ads on your social media about sustainable brands. So
Correct.
there are the interest and curiosity has definitely shot up. I also realized that a lot of people just don't know how to go about living a sustainable life.
Correct.
They don't know where to start. They find it daunting. They find it expensive,
stressful.
They find that a lot of preparation has to go into living a sustainable life. So yeah, these are the things that I kind of found out. Yeah.
So what would you tell those people who want to live a conscious, responsible life?
Right.
Where should they start, and what would you guide them? How would you guide them?
I would say go back to your roots. Like our grandparents would carry cloth bags to the market.
That's right.
They would not go to every shop, pick up one piece of plastic, and come back home with like 10 bags of paper and plastic bags.
Right.
They walked. They used public transport. They took cloth bags. They would use shikakai for their hair. So there's so many things that we could learn from, like a simpler life that
From their own grandparents.
from our own from our own older generations. One more thing I realized: a lot of people, what do you say? They make excuses. They say it takes a lot of effort. Gosh, it's too much planning. I can't do it. It's,
That's right.
You know, things like that. And then I realized that this is all I have to tell them. I say that human convenience. Like, who told you that human convenience is far more important than the planet? Like, who told you that you can live a convenient life at the expense of, at the cost of the planet that you were born into and were like lucky enough to, you know, have experienced? Like, we don't know what our future generations will be facing.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's really scary.
And they may be, our future generations may continue to live on planet Earth, but their quality of life may be terrible.
That's
and
right.
that scares me. So yeah, I mean, this is all I have to tell people. Like, yes, you have to make some effort. Little bit goes a long way,
Right.
but start somewhere.
And also, I remember you mentioning about information, education about the subject.
Right.
So, where should they go look for such information? And I also liked what you said. Information should affect you.
I wish they taught us this stuff in schools. I really wish we had a more, like an education that equipped us to deal with a real life, with real, like, you know, calamities that the earth is facing. But
Or
unfortunately,
being empathetic also. I think
being empathetic, knowing that, I mean, I have a niece and I love telling her stories, okay? And she's highly, I mean, she knows a lot about sustainability through me and my family.
Okay.
And I keep telling her that, like, you are our future generation. You need to tell your friends about it. So I keep telling her, like, imagine a world many, many years ago, humans and animals and nature were all equal. No one was bigger than the other. No one
Right.
was more important. To begin with, I wish education, like education schools taught us this. But information, I feel like in this age of social media, there is no dearth of information with regard to this topic. Also because it's so widely spoken about.
Right. And it's a vast subject, right?
Yes,
it's a huge
it
subject.
is, and
to
it is not
address.
one dimensional. There's so many dimensions to
exactly.
it, like so many factors to it. I feel that, like, your news is so full of very morbid things about like natural calamities and this and that should make you want to understand how every act as a human being is leading to such disasters.
Absolutely.
I always tell people, like, follow people on social media who talk about this stuff.
Right.
You know, who are out there to educate you. There's so many influencers who are now talking about sustainability and other practices, and I think that's a great place to begin.
Yeah. Do you have any three of your favorite accounts that you follow on sustainability?
I do. My favorite would be Worm Rani, Vani Murthy.
She's a
I'm
darling,
such a big
yeah.
fan of her, and she really sort of, I mean, the kind of energy she has and the kind of positivity she just sort of exudes is fascinating. So there's Vani. There's also a lady called Neelima V, who writes extensively about this. There's a lot of, like, travel bloggers also who are now talking about traveling sustainability.
That's
so I feel
right.
everyone is talking about sustainability in their field of
Correct.
expertise, which is beautiful, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I heard you also have a restaurant per se, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, I do.
How did that start?
I kind of always wanted to be an entrepreneur, like
Okay.
wanted to see what it's like. Honestly, business scares me. The thought that you could put in your money and lose it entirely really scares me.
The risk factor,
Yeah, the
right?
risk factor really scares me. I'm a very safe person like that. I grew up in a family where fixed deposits were the best way to invest your money. My dad still believes that. So, like, very safe kind of family, money-wise. So, which would intimidate me, the thought of investing money. But I also really wanted to feel the thrill of it, you know, just like building something from scratch, being responsible for it, watching it grow, or like owning up to what went wrong, what you can do better, and realizing that it's not easy. Life is not easy. You want to make something, you want to make a brand, you have to work hard.
Correct.
You lose money, but then you learn something out of it, you know, things like that. So that's how my, like, I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And I have friends in Chennai who would always, like, I mean, I would keep telling them, like, hey, if there's any, like, investment opportunity, like, a restaurant preferably, please let me know, because I always wanted to be like a restaurateur, Shraddha Srinath. So,
and you become one.
And yeah, it did happen. And so this opportunity came knocking at my door. My friend said, a bunch of us are doing it. Do you want to try? And I said, okay, yeah. And the concept really excited me on more than anything else. I just feel like people think that salads are boring and they're like ghas poos,
right?
Some people would call them,
you know,
right?
Bad publicity.
Yeah, it's so sad. I feel like those people have not eaten a good salad, and they really need to be introduced to good salads.
Okay.
And to me, healthy eating is a very important part of my life. I mean, I was very obese. This is about 2014 or so, and I know how much effort I put in, and I also know how much eating the right kind of food helped me.
Okay.
Like a balance of like the less indulgent foods versus like a salad, let's say. And so, I mean, I realized that there are no salad places in India, like places that specialize in salads.
That's right. Not many.
Not many at all. I mean, there's like one or two fast food brand that serves salads, but that's about it. That's all I can think of.
And those salads have a lot of mayonnaise.
Yes.
Those are salads for the name's sake, but they're loaded.
Those mayonnaise are killer. I mean, like the calorific value just shoots up like that. So yeah, and this, I mean, my friends who were pitching this idea to me, they said that, you know, they grow hydroponic plants and it's all very fresh and they're urban farmers and things like that. So it was all like a collaborative effort that made it per se. And so I said, okay, cool. I said, I want to do this. We started in March 2020, and then
just
Corona happened.
Just before the lockdown.
Sort of recovering and resuming from where we left off. But it's a very dear, it's a project that's very close to me.
Any sustainable practices that you practice at your per se?
Well, we have paper, what do you say, boxes. And we have wooden cutlery, and that makes for a brand like ours, where you can't invest in people washing the dishes, so it's take and go. It's mostly take and go for us. So we have that going for us. I try and question my team at every step about, is there a better way that we can do it? Is this the best? Does this work out for us monetarily? Things like that. So I am that voice of reason in.
No, I'm sure you being on board.
Yeah, so that's how it is.
Shraddha, tell me, do you see a connect between ecology and economy?
Ecology meaning nature and
nature, you know, working to conserve nature versus economic benefits.
Everything has a motive, right? Everything that, I mean, needs to reward you at the end of the day. I mean, if the world were working on pro bono basis, like just charity, there would be no motivation really, except, I mean, of course there would be motivation in terms of just how good you feel about it, but there's a reason why business itself as a concept was birthed on planet Earth, when humans decided, okay, we exchange services in exchange for like money or whatever, but then you can't exploit your ecology or like the environment,
right?
That you are, you know, you are drawing resources out of it. You can't like leave it sort of bleeding.
Right.
I think there has to be a balance, and there can be a balance. Striking a balance is what like a modern day sustainable business would be all about.
Right.
So yes, there has to be both.
A balance of both.
A balance of both.
Do you have any 3 suggestions that you want to give young entrepreneurs before they start any business ventures?
I would say invest in, okay, let's say I have a friend who makes handmade soaps.
Okay.
For the longest time, she also thinks like me. So for the longest time, she was saving all the bubble wrap that had come in all her, you know, delivery packages, all of it. She had like saved piles of it.
I saved them too.
Right.
Piles.
So she would wrap her, you know, like glass bottles of. I mean, she makes soap and like body butters and stuff. So she would wrap them up in that just for protection for her body butters especially. Then she ran out of them, and then she realized that investing in like paper, there's something called paper bubble wrap, which is made
It's
of
like
paper,
a
but
shredded paper,
yes,
which gives you the texture to.
yeah, it's like a honey beehive kind
Correct,
of thing.
yes.
She said investing in that for a small business like mine is a bit much. At that point, she thought that it's too much, or it will not. I mean, I would have to spend way more than I'm, you know, like
It doesn't
earning.
make economic sense.
Economic sense. But then she realized that her whole idea of starting business was that I will never compromise on my ideals, and I want it to be a sustainable business. I want to be one of the first few sort of pioneers in this industry who, like, even though you're a startup, even though you have the option of using plastic, even though you have the
Cheaper,
option, yeah, you have
other
cheaper options, right? There's so much like money you can save on that. She realized that it may be a slower journey, like a longer journey for her to really hit the numbers that she would like to, but this is what she like believes in. So I feel like, yes, you'll have to take some hard decisions. Yes, as an entrepreneur, you may think that I'm spending so much. Where's my money? When am I getting it back? But I feel that it is something that you will have to do. I feel like you should educate your clients about.
Absolutely, yeah.
She talks about how she. So there's something called. What is that? Palm oil, which is extremely bad for the environment. Just like the kind of forests we decimate in order to get palm oil is unbelievable. That is very commonly used in soaps, but she uses a more eco-friendly alternative for palm oil.
Okay.
And she, of course, her soaps are a little bit more extra, like slightly more extra priced. You know what I mean? If you go to the market, like a supermarket, and buy a soap, it'll be for 30-50 bucks maybe. I don't even know. These are for way more, like 4-5 times more than that. But she educates her clients about what she uses, why they're good for the planet, why they're good for you, why it's like good in the long run, and why, you know, I'm making them batch by batch, so they're a little expensive. So educate your clients about what you're using, your sustainable practices, and who knows, tomorrow your client will be like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I appreciate the steps you are taking to, you know, sort of save the planet. And so talk about this to your clients on your social media, especially.
But this is a major, you know, the major part of it.
Right.
Though you can, you know, as you said, the numbers you are intending to hit might take a little longer, but then hang in there, educate your clientele, and be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Shraddha, I've seen you wear some beautiful handloom saris. Is it a choice to promote handloom, or do you just love saris?
I think I love saris.
Okay.
I mean, like every other Indian girl, I kind of grew up watching my mom wear a lot of saris, and I was fascinated by the way she makes just one like long piece of cloth, like draped so beautifully with all these twists and turns, and how graceful it would look on her. It was, to me, it was like rocket science. How do you do it, mom? So yeah, I guess I was fascinated with saris and I wanted to be like, I wanted to quickly grow up and wear saris.
Okay.
I was that girl who was in a hurry to grow up and just look like a beautiful woman. So yeah, I think that it's the most forgiving like outfit in the world. You will look beautiful no matter what. All the right curves will be accentuated, and I have not seen a single woman in a sari who has not looked nice. Like, I feel everybody looks beautiful in a sari.
That's true. I like the way you said forgiving outfit. Wow. Right? I never thought of that. That's beautifully
Everyone can feel confident in a sari. At least this is what I feel. I always feel great in a sari. So yeah, I do. And why not? So therefore I wear a lot of saris. Sometimes I raid my mom's cupboard and I'm like, what sari can I wear now? She'll be like, don't touch that. This is like 50 years old. So it'll be like my grandmother's or something.
Oh, wow.
So she'll be like, just be careful with it. Don't step on it with your heels.
Oh yeah. All the instructions.
Yeah. But I have also realized now the value of like the people who make those saris. The art, the like many centuries of like culture that resides in that, you know, sari.
Absolutely.
And how there are so many new fabrics which are so bad for the environment. All these like created
Poly,
all these
nylon,
poly,
synthetic,
plastic, yeah, all these things.
I
And I
know.
realized that like a good old cotton sari will make you look beautiful. And it'll disintegrate into soil. It'll never even tell you that it was there, and it'll just go away. So it's biodegradable. It's beautiful.
Right. It's
So yeah,
sustainable.
and sustainable. So yeah, I mean, now I realize the value of yeah, like good handloom sarees.
What is your idea about sustainable fashion, and what would you tell people to look into before they invest in fashion or anything to do with vanity?
Oh my God, I have so much to talk
Please
about it.
share it all with us.
I mean, if you look back and think of like the ancient man, like the Neanderthals or whatever, Homo sapiens, we only wore things to protect us. We were feeling cold, there was too much sun, there was rain.
Right.
It was just protective gear, really.
Correct.
It was nothing. And how that evolved into like, oh, this looks good. Oh, this is your body shape. You should not be wearing this. This will make you look fat. This will make your like hips look bigger. And so how they have sold to us that buy clothes to look good. This is not the right kind of clothes. Oops, you bought this jeans. No, don't wear those jeans. Buy another pair of jeans. So how we are like engineered to thinking that clothes make us look good. Clothes play such an important part in our like self-esteem and like confidence. Some days you look good and you're like, I can own the world. I will walk like I'm the queen. Some days you don't, and you know that like you just don't want to talk to people. You don't feel good from inside, you know. That's how much an effect clothes have on us. This whole culture of fast fashion, like, you know, I remember when I was like during college years, no, like there were these like small markets in Bangalore where you could buy clothes for really cheap, like, you know, like the street markets.
Correct.
Right? And they'd be like, oh, you know, those are export rejects. Like these are branded clothes, but there'll be like one tiny defect, and you can like whatever. And they'd be like, dude, it's $300. You wear it for 6 months, you can throw it away. And I would think, I don't know, who throws clothes away? And that's when I realized that this whole seasonal changes of fast fashion, like every time you visit the same store, there will be new stock.
Every month.
Every month.
Literally
exactly.
every month, yes.
And it's all off the runway. It's cheap. It's being produced in bulk. People who are making it are being treated like slaves in like third world countries. The working conditions are poor.
Absolutely.
There have been huge disasters, but no one has noticed them or spoken about them. The fabrics they use, which are use and throw, like use for 6 months and throw it away, man. Like they do not degrade. The dyes they use, chemical dyes for colors, they're polluting our rivers. There's so much to this. It is also encouraging this mad retail behavior where you go and you're like, oh,
Addiction.
it's just for $99.
Like
99 only. Yeah, addiction. You just want to like constantly buy things. And buying things will give you temporary happiness, but is it making you a better person? Is it giving you long-term happiness, peace, like kind of positivity in your life? No.
Absolutely
But you're
not.
happy buying like cheap stuff.
And that happiness doesn't even last for too long.
Exactly. For the first week that you buy those new clothes, you'll only wear those new clothes. Third week, you'll forget about them. You'll be like, what next? What can I spend on next? So it's encouraging this kind of, like I said, this madness, this retail therapy. Like go shop and you'll feel better.
I
like
really
some kind
hate
of
that
spa.
word,
I
retail
hate it,
therapy.
right? They made fashion clothes into that from what was it in the beginning? Just to protect yourself from the sun and heat and like winter, cold. So I am absolutely against fast fashion. I have boycotted fast fashion brands for the past 2019. So 2 years it will be
I'll
this
join
year.
your wagon as well.
I'm glad we're part of the same. Recently a stylist came to me. It was a very casual look. Someone had to style me for an event and he said, okay, we're going to go with this look, this top. And I'm like, this is that brand. I'm sorry, I can't wear it. And I said, hey.
I think I know which brand you're talking about.
Right? Because it's so easily accessible. It'll make you look like $1 million.
Correct.
But at what cost? So I told my stylist, I said, I want to henceforth, I want to wear brands that resonate with my ideas of fashion. So out with these guys, not wearing them.
Fabulous.
Get me sustainable fabrics, slow fashion brands, get me that stuff. So yeah, so I feel like this the whole culture of fast fashion is like many layers. It's bad for the environment. It's exploiting human rights. It's again encouraging this kind of uh, compulsive buying kind of
That's right.
disorder in human beings. If one realizes all this,
And it's one of the topmost industries which is polluting the planet in a big
absolutely,
way.
and that is just horrific. I mean, and those companies are doing nothing about it. There is something called greenwashing where they'll be like, you return our clothes to us,
It's a
and
marketing gimmick.
we will, like, please, like, if people could just see through that rubbish. I have stopped buying like from fast fashion brands. I have, in fact, I'm trying to go on a very minimalism kind of route.
Okay.
But do I really need this? Of course, we all have the
Questioning
money.
yourself.
Yeah, we all have the money to buy so many things.
Right.
Like the average spending power in India has gone up incredibly high.
That's
like
right.
it's everybody can afford a lot of things and look great. Do we really need it? I've stopped like chasing temporary joys. Buy things, feel happy, move on. I've stopped doing that. I started thrifting a lot, which is I find very exciting.
Yeah.
I think these are the practices that I've sort of adopted, and I want to tell people that we should stop sort of paying so much attention on how we look. I mean, in the end, I think it's like an unhealthy obsession.
It is, it
with
is.
just looking good, just purely obsessing with how you look and how attractive you look. Try to become a better person. Try and like cultivate a hobby, get a better skill. I don't know, something like that. Find a new passion, but like, yeah, fast fashion is just horrific. It's so bad.
Shraddha, you called yourself that during lockdown. I remember you saying it in one of your interviews that I've become a beautiful homebody.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate that?
Gosh, the day I found out the shoot will be resuming, I said, do I really have to go back? I mean, that's how I got so attached to the idea of staying at home. I feel like as an actor, you have to constantly, like look a certain way, have a
Right.
certain appearance, have a certain demeanor while talking to people. Some days you're tired, genuinely from inside. You're not having a good day, but you have to. I think as humans, we all have to put up that. And
Yeah, we play different roles.
we play different
right?
roles,
Yeah.
and I'm an introvert. I know this. I have discovered more about myself during the lockdown than I ever did. So I realized that
Really?
I'm an introvert, and I just love being by myself or being as I am, waking up as I am, not having to like look a certain way. Because like the whole routine of wake up, glam up, and go, it can get to you. I mean,
You can't do it every
I mean,
day.
yeah, some people love that aspect of their job. I like it. I don't love. I'm not crazy about it. So yeah, I mean, that's how I realized that I've just became a beautiful homebody. Just wanted to be at home, not have any plans for the day. Focus on my like how is everyone doing? How are the bioenzymes? I mean, whatever. Like so, it
Oh
became.
yeah, bioenzymes. Yes. Please tell me about how you explored bioenzymes and did you
Right.
face any challenges while doing it?
How I discovered bioenzymes. So beginning of lockdown, there was loads of like newspaper articles about what you can do at home to keep yourself busy and things like
Okay.
that, right? And there was a very interesting piece, and they had interviewed a lady called Vani Murthy. Her Instagram handle was given, and my mom cut that out and she kept it.
Oh, that's how you got to know
Yes.
Vani Garu?
Yes, she cut it out and she kept it, and so there were some accounts that I was following on Instagram, and there was whatever. So long story short, my mom said, "Hey, let's try this. It works for like all like whatever cleaning purposes and everything." I'm like, I said, "Where will we find all this lemon?" She's like, "You tell me, I'll start." I said, "Okay, fine. Give it a week, and like we have collected like this much of like lemon peels, lemon rinds, whatever, and." So I make my first batch of bioenzymes, and I remember I texted Vani Murthy and I said I had like a couple of questions to ask her, and I'm like, why will she respond? Why will she respond? I'm behaving like like oh my god, fangirl. Why will she ever look at my DM? But she did, and she was so nice. She responded, and so I kind of like took my followers also on this journey of like, guys, I'm making bioenzymes today. What are bioenzymes? Why am I making them? Because all these cleaning agents that you have in your home in colorful packages, they're all bad for your planet. The
So
minute they enter your
toxic.
drain, they're entering our waters and water bodies and oceans, killing our marine life.
Correct.
It's just so bad. And like
And you can't even filter that water.
you cannot.
You cannot.
It's not. I don't know how to what extent it can be recycled or
It
whatever.
cannot be.
It cannot be. And like we buy like one plastic packaging over the other just to sort of replenish those cleaning agents. I said, okay. I mean, at this point when I started making bioenzymes, I said, let me give it a try. It's like my lockdown project. Let me try it.
Okay.
And that's how it began. And I started reading up more and more about it. I realized that, you know, like I read a quote somewhere, our oceans begin the minute the drain begin, like, you know, like basically when you talk about polluting your oceans, like whatever water exists, your drain itself will be, somehow it will land up in the oceans.
Correct.
So this is how I started making bioenzymes, and I gave it that period of like waiting time. I would check every day as if like, are we there yet, sort of thing. And my mom was like, wait, patience. And the first batch was ready, and I said, okay, mom, now you have to try it. If it compromises on your like standards of cleanliness, then I will not force you, and maybe we don't go ahead with this. Just try it out.
Okay.
We tried it. The home was like swept with it. Glasses were clean with it. So we tried a whole week of this, and it was fantastic.
It smells so beautiful,
it's so
right?
Citrusy and beautiful.
Yes.
And like
I'm excited listening to your story. It's so exciting, really.
Right? I mean, like a success story is so great because that's one more family that's converted into like following a sustainable fashion or whatever, cleaning. So it did its job. It did its job really well. And my mom said, my mom had no complaints. She said, she said, let's make more. So we started. Now I started going to my sister's house. Do you have any extra lemon peels? Went to my neighbors. Do you have any extra lemon peels that you guys want to throw away? Give it to me. So started making many batches. And June 2020 is when we officially started using bioenzymes for cleaning the house, and we have not looked back.
Fabulous.
How it's been 9 months. We have only been reusing one plastic bottle. Been refilling that. We have big jars of plastic where I like store my batches, but that's it. No extra plastic has entered my house. We have completely switched from that. The toilets are clean, the floors are clean, everything, fans are clean, the grime is removed. It's like
one product can solve all your problems.
One stop solution for all these things. Then I realized that again, like you go to a supermarket, and there are these colorful bottles which says, this you can only clean your sink with. This is specifically for your commode.
Surface cleaner, window cleaner.
For everything there's one colorful thing, and you feel like, oh yes, I need this. Otherwise my house is not perfect, and you give into it.
Correct.
That's how capitalism works.
I'm glad you brought this out. I mean, that's so right.
And so then we realized that actually if you look at the ingredients of them, they're all the same.
It's a marketing game.
It's just a gimmick. So I'm wiser now. My mom has not complained once. She's so happy. Every time I come back home from shoots, she'll be like, okay, see, I've collected so many orange peels and lemon peels. Make it and put the date on them. I'll keep checking on them, sort of thing. So this is a very big switch that we made in our house.
It's like a little pet project between you and your mom. I think you bonded also over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I feel like more than anything, my family is really supportive of this. And I mean, my mother could have said, no, this doesn't work. Who's going to make this? Oh, come on. You know, I could have heard of any of that and I would have been like discouraged. But they didn't, and I didn't get discouraged, and I continued to make it, and I don't see myself stopping anytime at all. So I feel really, I feel very empowered. I'm creating something on my own.
That's the right word.
Right? Yeah.
It's so gratifying at the same time, right?
Yeah. You're right.
So you've done so many changes. List us few things that you changed in your life.
Right.
From the time you wake up till the time you go to bed.
I think one of the biggest switches was a menstrual cup. I did first switch to, what do you call them, like a biodegradable sanitary pad also. But I also learnt, and this is like a asterisk which will not be written in bold, like you have to compost that. And back then I was not composted. Then I realized I took the plunge and I said, let me just get a menstrual cup. So that has really helped me. I mean, of course, I lead like there's less waste in my life, but there's a lot of peace of mind also. So I think as a woman, I think that's a fantastic change to make. There is a bamboo toothbrush. There's a whole kit in my in my handbag now, where there's a straw and there's like cutlery. So the minute I know that I may be going to a place where they will serve me something in a plastic spoon, like a disposable, I'll be like, I do not need it.
Bring
Like,
out your spoon?
yeah, absolutely. First thing I do, I go to a restaurant and be like, I don't need a straw. Don't, like, some of them just take the liberty to pull out a straw and put it in your drink. I'm like, do not, I don't. I don't need a straw. There's that. I introduced my family to composting, so that's also a really big step that we have taken as a family. Of course, in our apartment complex, segregating waste was a very strict thing. We have been doing it for a long time, but now we compost our own wet waste. So we have like buckets of like golden, what do you call it? Golden soil or whatever, like just like
Black gold.
black gold, yeah. We have that, and it's tested, and so the plants are growing really fast. At least my brother-in-law's little plants are growing really fast. So there's that. Plastic bottles. I have said September 2019. I decided no plastic bottles.
You're good with dates.
I'm very good.
I'm like, every
like-
time you say something, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my anniversary is on that day, but no, I remember which day I stopped using plastic bottles.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm someone like on sets, I have this habit of, like when I'm shooting especially, I have like a minimum of 4 liters, not minimum, a standard of 4 liters, like when I'm shooting. And so like that would mean 8 small 500 ml water bottles. And I would like very proudly, I would ask my assistant, how many bottles are we done with? So he'd be like, 7 bottles done, ma'am, like 3.5 liters already done for the day. Oh, you're doing very well. So we would keep a track of how much water we drink.
Okay.
Until one day I realized, like, where is this plastic going? Into the water, into like landfills, and what is happening? And then I realized that like plastic is such a huge component of our modern day lives, and then I decided no more buying plastic bottles. Always be prepared with a water bottle in your bag. It may make your bag a bit heavier, but just carry it. Find places where you can refill it. If you find an opportunity that, okay, I'm at someone's house or someone's office, or I'm at a mall where there's like a drinking water
Right.
refill station, refill it. You don't know when you'd need it. Like, don't ever be in a spot where you may have to buy a water bottle. In fact, I'm so stubborn about this. Sometimes I have run out of water bottle, drinking water in my water bottle. I have nowhere to refill it. And I say, I would rather be thirsty than
Oh
buy
my
a water.
God.
It's very silly, Shilpa, but I said, I'm not buying water bottles.
The
So
integrity, I see integrity here.
I guess, I feel like if I do something, I have to do it perfectly. I can't like, I feel like a failure when I like don't do these things, you know, and someday I forget to carry my wooden cutlery and I have to use a plastic spoon and I feel like, God, why did I buy it? Why is it not in my bag? I criticize myself very much, so I feel like I need to do this right because this is one thing that I'm very passionate about, and I feel like I have started well. Want to keep it going, so no room for human error kind of thing. In fact, I carry like 4 bottles of water. Like I carry my mother's Tupperware bottles to shoot.
Shoots, okay.
So I call up room service or housekeeping and I say, I have plastic bottles. I want you to refill them and bring them to my room. Send someone to collect them and refill them. Ma'am, we'll give you bottles. I'm like, no. Ma'am, plastic, we don't have plastic bottles. I have my own plastic bottle, guys. I just want you to take them down, refill them and bring them up. It is beyond them. Why is this woman, we'll give her free plastic bottles, we'll give her free mineral water, why is she not taking them? They don't understand.
I know what you're saying, totally.
Right? So, but yeah, these are the things that I have started doing. I have not bought a car for myself. I always wanted to have like a Mini Cooper. Growing up, I wanted to own a Mini Cooper. Then I realized that the number of vehicles on the road, the number of pollution, single people driving cars. As a celebrity, there is some pressure to put up a photo saying, guys, I bought a car. I mean, there is all that, I'll be honest. But I have stopped myself. I still drive my dad's car. And it's fine. So
it's
these
fine.
are, yeah, I feel like I'm way more than my status as a celebrity. My values are way stronger. I will not give in to peer pressure. I continue to live life as though none of this ever happened to me. But yeah, these are some of the changes.
And I'm sure this will be so inspiring for a lot of people who are watching you. being an actress,
Right.
as you said, so many pressures to look
Right.
good, not repeat your clothes, you know,
Right.
own a great car, be
Yeah.
seen in this outfit, those
Right.
shoes.
Yeah.
And you saying this will really strike a chord in many, many, many people. I'm so glad you're sharing all this with me.
Thank you. I hope so.
So, one more question. I've seen you go to temples and treks.
Right.
Is it something that has been imbibed in you, or it's your choice to stay close to nature and be rooted in our culture?
I love history. I love to think of, I love to go to like forts, temples, museums.
Okay.
And I love to think of what could be happening in this very spot like thousands of years ago.
Oh my God, you're talking
Really?
like me.
Oh my God, seriously?
Without electricity, with the
Yes,
mashal burning.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, what were they talking about? What were their problems? You know, how did they build this? And how is it lasting? So that stuff really fascinates me. So I go to temples, less to worship, but more to just like bask in the
glory.
the glory of these beautiful old structures that are so like engineering wise so sound. But yeah, that's my reason for visiting temples. I also think I grew up going to a lot of temples. Like my dad would want to take my grandparents to a lot of like old temples and stuff.
Okay.
So I hated it back then. Like in a non-air conditioned car, like, and in the heat of like summer vacations and like traveling through Tamil Nadu, Andhra. Oh God, I did not want to be there. But now I really love those temples. I love old temples. Treks. I grew up as a very outdoorsy child. And then somehow city life happened, and then I became very lazy. Actually, I kind of discovered treks during the lockdown. Like there was nowhere to go.
Correct.
Clubs.
Oh, in
were
Bangalore?
shut. Yeah, in Bangalore.
Okay.
Like a lot of time, like malls were shut, or rather, when they did reopen, it was just dangerous to go.
Correct.
And I said, what can I do to not again give in to buying many things, or like, oh, go get 2 drinks and feel good about life. No, what do I do with myself and with the body that I've been given? So and I have friends who are avid trekkers, so decided to go with them. It's great. It costs nothing. You feel like a sense of achievement.
That's right.
And you just feel so good overall. You feel like, hey, this is, I mean, you realize that having fun does not cost money. You don't have to go to like places that need money. Of course, you need to buy a ticket to enter that trekking, whatever, like whatever, but that's it.
Very
That's all.
nominal, right?
Right?
Yeah.
It's nothing. And that's how I think I kind of discovered that I really enjoy going on treks.
So, one question about women empowerment. What does it mean to you? And do you think empowering women can also bring some kind of sustainability and economic stability?
You know, I feel like my mom is 50, 55 something, and she doesn't know how to drive a car. And it is one of her biggest regrets that she doesn't know how to drive a car, and she has to depend on someone to take her somewhere. And I think of all the women in our country, or let's say across the world, who had desires but couldn't really pursue them due to lack of opportunity, lack of education, lack of support, right? It could be so many things. And I just feel like a life that you could not completely fulfill, like your like the kind of ambition, the kind of potential every woman,
right.
I'm only talking about women here because we're talking about women empowerment, because I love women. I feel like the kind of potential we all have, and I feel so sad thinking of women who could not achieve like their 100%, you know?
Right.
So that breaks my heart. And so I feel like women empowerment to me is like where the future lies. It's women empowerment is where our future generation will be raised, right? Raised with more heart and raised with more equality. You see women, I grew up watching my mom take care of a house, go to school, teach, come back, correct homework, like, and handwrite exam papers, because back then printing was not a thing. She would handwrite every test paper, things like that. So she's a winner in my eyes. She doesn't know how to drive, but she's a champ, right? And I feel like we all need to grow up watching women, like successful women, who became something out of their own, like sheer will. For me, that's where, like, for me, that's a women empowerment, and I think it really just begins with basic things like education. Unfortunately, just access to education. I also feel like women are more heart
That's right.
somehow. Like I don't want to generalize, but I'd say like if let's say the men would be more practical, like thug, things
Very
have to be done.
pragmatic, practical,
right? Like
yes.
Compartmentalize. Women are more heart, more emotion.
Right.
And so, if you're talking about sustainability, I feel like there would be more heart into it, more thought, more, hey, is this better for the planet, let's say, right? Like my soap maker friend, like, you know, more
Exactly.
thought.
Right.
Of course, I'm not here to generalize, and I'm sure. But yeah, I feel like women just bring in that touch of like that soft touch and just,
It adds, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
It adds a different, dimension to
Yeah,
what they
totally.
do. Shraddha, you being from film industry, I want to ask you a question. What are the 3 things that you think film industry can bring in to steer towards sustainability?
There is a lot of waste accumulation that happens on sets. Plastic, like water bottles.
Okay.
Also during snack time, if you see, like everyone will be given paper or plastic plates and like plastic spoons, and it will all be just discarded and forgotten about. And that happens on a daily basis.
And
the
hundreds.
Crew, yes, the crew doesn't consist of any less than, you know, like 50 to 100 people. Even the smallest of crews are like that. So that's a huge responsibility that we need to tackle. How we need to tackle, I just guess, have water refill stations, tell everyone to bring their own water bottles, hang it around your like chest, do something, but be responsible for your own self. That's one thing. I feel like I've always wondered, after like a film shooting is done, what do they do with the clothes? Like, do you resell them? Do you, you know, I wonder what they do with that. So for me, that's an area of concern. Or are you just hoarding those clothes? Because then it's just very like, I mean, of course it's your money and it's fine. The clothes are kept there quietly, but something can be done about that. I remember when I was very new to films, whenever I would exit the vanity van, I would switch off the AC and lights and everything, and my staff would be like, "Madam, no,
That's
not,
majboor."
yeah, like you will come back, you'll sweat, you need the AC." And I used to feel so bad, like liters of fuel is just being, and nobody's sitting in the van.
Right.
I am there for 4 hours, and I come in for just like a quick break, and I go back again. So that diesel is just being consumed like regardless. So that feels like a real pinch to me. Also things like this is something that I think we can work around. Like, okay, so let's say shooting spot is here. My hotel, my staff members are staying here, and I'm staying here. My staff will always, even if his own like accommodation is on the way, he'll drop me and go back to his hotel. When I tell him, you don't have to. No, no, madam, this is how it is. This is how it's done.
They can't let you go alone.
We can't let you go alone.
Okay.
One day I told the driver, I'm like, and then his accommodation is somewhere else.
Okay.
And I'm saying, like, you have to do so much up and down. He's like, madam, it's okay. They are paying for it. And I'm like, it's not about the money, darling. I wish I could tell them.
Yeah.
But then they will, I feel like I'm unable to explain to my staff and to all these people around me why I'm making such a big fuss about it. But like if somewhat, at least my staff and my accommodation can be booked right next to each other, so they don't have to do that like extra double trip.
Right.
So much fuel is wasted. I mean, yeah, but the industry runs on practices like "aisa hi hota hai." This is how it is, madam. Don't question it. You know, things like that, where there's some waste involved.
Is it true that there's a lot of food wastage also? They have more food than
Is required.
is required.
Yeah, I mean, like a wedding, you know, like you don't want to send back anyone hungry. So to cater to that, you always have extra food. So no one goes back hungry or like not eat what they want to eat. But then there are organizations that deal with that. There's something called the Robin Hood Army, and there's many organizations nowadays which will come and collect uneaten food and serve it to those who need it and things like that. So, but yeah, you're right. There is a lot of food wastage that happens. Like carriers are made, right? For me also one big carrier will be sent and rice will be to the brim, 10 chapatis, and I'm like, look at me and see how much, ask me how much I need, but then they'll be like, just in case you feel hungry, madam. So they're always like, no one should have any like dearth or lack of food. Yeah,
That was such a beautiful conversation I had with you, and all of which that you practice.
Yes.
It's not that you're just saying it out of your knowledge or wisdom or information,
Right.
but you're practicing everything that you spoke, and it's so heartwarming to have someone like you on my show.
Thank
So
you,
apt.
Shilpa. Thank
So
you.
before we finish, I have a rapid choice round.
Okay.
So let's go for that. So very simple. I'll give you a choice, and then you have to just pick what's your favorite.
Okay.
All about nature.
Okay.
Mostly about nature, rather. So do you like mountains or beaches?
Mountains.
May I ask you why?
I just love the weather there. It's so calming.
Okay.
I feel like beaches in India are just very hot. So I
Okay.
love mountains, yeah.
Forests or grasslands?
Forests.
Caves or valleys?
Ooh. Valleys.
Birds or animals? Difficult?
I have a phobia of birds, so I'll say animals.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge animal lover. I'm just like I fight for animal rights wherever I can. I'm not, but between the two, I would pick.
Animals.
Birds are very unpredictable.
They're mysterious too.
Yeah.
A plant or a tree?
Plant.
Water or fire?
Water.
Sun or the moon?
The moon.
Roses or lilies?
Either, as long as they're where they belong, like on the plant.
Oh,
Yeah.
how sweet. Fruits or vegetables?
Ooh, tough one.
Okay, we'll give you both.
Yeah.
Fine.
Please, thank you.
Farming or gardening?
Farming someday. I
Okay.
hope.
Sunrise, sunset?
Sunrises.
Early bird? You
Yeah,
wake up early?
Yeah.
Okay. A river or an ocean?
River.
Why?
Just sort of takes everything along with it.
Rain or snow?
Rain.
Biking, trekking?
Trekking.
Would you like to stay in a camp or a cottage?
A camp, like a tent.
Okay. House or a farmhouse?
A farmhouse.
Skydiving or scuba diving?
Ooh. I haven't done either. I do have a fear of the ocean. I feel like I would be petrified. I would say skydiving.
Okay. Summers or winters?
Yeah. Winters.
Salad or a smoothie?
Salad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. It was so much fun.
Thank
So
you.
before you leave, we have a beautiful hamper that we curated from Yellow Veranda.
Ooh.
Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Super happy to have this very meaningful conversation with Shraddha. Please do subscribe to my channel. Do not miss any updates. See you all next week. Signing off, Shilpa Reddy.